Why do monastics like you have to cut off relationships between men and women? Because relationships between men and women are necessary for the continuation of humanity. Satisfying basic needs is a fundamental human requirement that we all share. I am curious if Buddhism can function similarly to religions like Christianity or Islam, allowing followers to get married and raise children. This is the core of my first question.
In fact, the concepts of yin and yang in our world, that is to say the masculine and the feminine, or the East and the West, are fundamental laws that govern all things. Especially in Taoism, for example, the ancient theory of yin and yang was held in extremely high regard and widely practiced more than 2,000 years ago. Today, there are many individuals who mistakenly believe that the core of Buddhism is solely about controlling desire. However, that is actually not the case at all, because within the Buddha's precepts there are different levels or stages. They are divided into several stages. One of them is the essential practice of taking refuge in the three jewels. For some people, they have no specific religious belief at all, and they should still be respected. The Buddha also said this in the sutras. Even those without any faith are acceptable. Then, after someone develops faith, some people only take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the three jewels. That's one type of person. There are also some who take the lay precepts. As I mentioned earlier, regarding the lay precepts, the natural desire or romantic attraction between men and women is not suppressed, so a normal married life is completely permissible, especially for most lay people, according to the Buddha. What he is explaining to you is that you can have a relationship with your own spouse, but any improper sexual relationships outside that marriage are against moral and social norms. So, generally speaking, the Buddha's requirements for lay people are very much the same as the ethical and moral practices in today's more civilized countries. As for the monastics, they are a distinct and dedicated group within the tradition of Buddhism. This is because at a certain point of their spiritual development, the lifestyle of lay people still has quite a lot of influence on one's spiritual practice to varying degrees because of emotions and desires. When you rely on such family ties and desires to practice together, there are especially significant obstacles for both parties. At this point, you become a monastic and uphold a pure lifestyle. And even among monastics, there are different levels. This is an intermediate form of practice. Then in Buddhism, there is also another approach, such as in some tantric practices, when you ultimately reach a point where desire is completely free from the ordinary attachment between men and women, then you are allowed, as described in Vajrayana, to use that kind of wisdom and skillful means. But generally speaking, it is very difficult for most people to achieve this. However, it is certainly true and documented that in the history of numerous historical Indian practitioners, such as Saraha and, as I mentioned earlier, Indrabhuti, they ultimately relinquished all worldly attachments in their lives, yet were still able to continue their existence as ordinary lay people. In Tibetan Buddhism, renowned figures like Tilopa and Marpa Lotsawa and many others, these individuals also did not completely abandon worldly desires and actions. So, among those who became monastics, some did so for the convenience of practice. And there are also manifestations of liberation in this regard. Therefore, Buddhism does not require the complete elimination of all desires. It's not like that. This group needs to be analyzed.
And the question I most want to ask is this. Right now, the world's longest-lasting organizations are religious ones. They have existed for thousands of years. No other business or organization has such a long history. I think that since religion has been passed down for so long, is its fundamental essence really about the fulfillment of human nature, or is it because of your precepts and systems that it has persisted through time? Thank you.
I've also mentioned this in one of my previous lectures. Every major human civilization across the globe, some spanning a long history of 4,000 years and others 5,000 years, is deeply and fundamentally linked to the influence of various forms of religion, particularly those traditions that have been continuously passed down through generations. They are directly related. For instance, consider the roles of Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism. Actually emerged around 500 BCE. Confucius, Laozi, and Shakyamuni Buddha all appeared during this same historical period. As for certain prominent Western religious traditions, they had already existed well before this specific era began. For example, Hinduism has existed for roughly 4,000 years. So we all wonder, why has religion persisted and endured to this day? In fact, it already expounds the proper functioning of human wisdom and mind. Of course, there are also certain institutions, but it is extremely difficult for any single institution to have continued unchanged until today. So it is this spiritual philosophy, or you could say its essence, that has been passed down through generations to the present day. Sometimes I often find myself thinking, it has already been 2,500 years since the time of the Buddha. The principles that were taught back then, even today, are still so vivid and striking. For example, the teaching that all phenomena are impermanent in our lives today. I often tell everyone during my lectures, why is it that now when we talk about these ideas from Eastern culture that are over 2,000 years old, they still feel as fresh as if they happened just yesterday. But many other things, including various things like politics and international relations, may not remain valid or accurate even after a few years or several decades. Some of the knowledge that people highly valued in the 1960s and 1970s, nowadays even the terminology is no longer usable. So what is most important is the teachings about our spiritual dimension, the deepest levels and states of mind. Because of this, it has continued on through time with a tenacious strength and a remarkable vitality. If it did not possess this, it would easily have disappeared and vanished within the vast tides of human history. It couldn't possibly still exist today. So these religions they are like ancient wise elders who have lived for thousands of years. In their eyes, they have witnessed how countless minor and unique cultures have already disappeared and vanished from our world. So it is like a compassionate elder who has lived for millennia. From their unique point of view, sometimes we also need to explore and reflect on this. What is the mysterious secret behind the enduring continuation of its vitality? Actually, this is a significant and very good question for us to consider.
Venerable Master, I have a question for you. People cannot choose their own birth. If one is born into a very wealthy family, how should they cultivate their spiritual practice? Conversely, if one is born into a poor family, how should they practice their path? If one is born into a middle-class family, how should they practice? Thank you, Master.
If we are Buddhists, for example, monastics, then for someone born into an average family, learning and study may be relatively more convenient. Therefore, in making vows, some people set such goals, and in real life, such situations indeed exist. For example, among some monastics in Tibetan areas may be somewhat different from Han regions. Many Tibetan monastics come from extremely poor families. As a result, they are unable to go even to secluded places to practice, because in Tibetan Buddhism we do not typically go out on traditional alms rounds. In some places they have to build their own dwellings for practice. Even within our academy, if an individual is especially impoverished, they cannot even scrape together enough money to purchase even a very small house. Some people really want to live at the academy, but there's nothing they are able to do. They have to stay home and herd cattle while helping their own families with the household chores because they simply can't afford even a house. They are extremely poor. Some are especially wealthy, and if they're very well off, because their family is so extraordinarily rich, sometimes when conditions improve, people inevitably change. When conditions aren't so good, they might possess an abundance of merit and virtue. But when things are going smoothly, their resolve for spiritual practice simply fails to arise. Plus, the external influence of others also significantly impacts their practice to some extent. So generally speaking, a more moderate situation is more suitable for spiritual practice. That's what it means. Naturally, if we are reborn into poverty, there are also certain advantages to that. If someone is born into this kind of difficult, impoverished life, as a condition for generating renunciation, this is also something that exists in Buddhism. If he is born again into a much more prosperous and wealthy environment, and he can utilize and manage that accumulated wealth, as I have previously mentioned in our earlier discussion, if he can effectively make good use of it, that is also entirely reasonable. Even now, throughout the long course of human history, and in various countries today, some monastics, by relying on their own personal talents, possess a significant amount of wealth. So this material wealth in our worldly life, including the extensive global Taiwan-based Tzuchi Foundation today, Although in reality this is not personal property, it is still a significant form of power that Master Cheng Yen possesses, a unique kind of inner strength she has developed. And with this immense wealth of compassion, she is truly able to help others. Therefore, within the teachings of Buddhism, there are people who can be categorized into 3 different levels of. However, when we consider the journey of spiritual practice, it may be that those people in the middle are actually better suited for cultivation.
Most venerable and respected Khenpo, nowadays, as we just mentioned, we are cultivating a kind heart and doing good deeds daily. So when Buddhism talks about merit and blessings, do these results manifest in this current life or do they appear in the next?
Whether these blessings will appear in this present life or the next, there is a famous Buddhist treatise called the Abhidharmakosa. Within the pages of the Abhidharmakosa, this concept is explained quite clearly and thoroughly. If our internal motivation for performing these good deeds is exceptionally strong and pure, if the object of our good deeds is exceptionally virtuous and noble, then in such specific cases, certain good deeds can actually bear fruit even in this very life. If your motivation is extremely strong and pure, and the object, for example, is the act of making generous offerings to the monastic community, the ordained sangha of practitioners, then the merit is vast. What we commonly refer to as offering meals. You might be familiar with this, right? Among the good deeds we usually perform, humbly offering nutritious food and refreshing drink to the dedicated ordained monks and the devout nuns, directly providing food and drink to the monastic community. Under these specific circumstances, the ripening of the result is exceptionally rapid. There are some good deeds that I may perform in this very life, but they can't mature immediately. They might only manifest their results and consequences in a future life. Moreover, there are certain virtuous actions and good deeds that are also influenced by the unresolved karmic debts from our previous lives. It is just like the process of when we top up money on our phones to pay off an old balance. If you carried a significant outstanding balance before, a portion of the new funds you add will be directed toward settling what you previously owed from your balance. So we can say that the law of cause and effect is extremely complex. Some results manifest in this very life, relying on especially favorable conditions, and a few ripen in this lifetime. Some manifest in future lives, and some are what we call karma, to be experienced in subsequent lives. That is to say, only after several generations have passed, one will experience the inevitable result of that karma. So cause and effect are truly profound. The mind is like a highly skilled painter, able to paint all the diverse worlds we see. The Buddha also said in the Avatamsaka Sutra, the human mind is very much like a highly skilled painter. It possesses the power to create all sorts of diverse worlds. Our minds are also constantly influenced and governed by various kinds of karmic forces. And the karma we create for the future has many differences.
Respected Master, I have 2 specific questions to ask you today. Because I work in the field of financial management, my daily work is very closely related to wealth management. In addition to everything that classical economics traditionally describes, besides human capital and financial capital, there is a capital called moral capital, and it is the most essential and foundational form of capital. Are there any specific ways to help business owners quickly accumulate significant moral capital?
But within the concept of moral capital, there is something called the field of merit, and also something called the field of compassion. The so-called field of merit includes making offerings to temples, such as gilding statues, for example. Much like the people living in Thailand and Myanmar, they truly enjoy accumulating moral capital through the spiritual field of merit. This is because they frequently apply shimmering gold leaf to their Buddha statues as a sign of devotion. Eventually, the Buddha statues become quite plump, and then the gold is carefully scraped off once more, since numerous people are eager to accumulate spiritual merit, so the gold is scraped off and reapplied over and over again. Each time, it is these individuals who personally apply the gold leaf. If we visit, we might notice this too, that the country's economy may not be very developed overall, but their temples are especially dazzling, with a lot of gold covering every surface. This is one method of practice. But for me, when I strive to accumulate spiritual merit through my actions, it's mainly through acts related to the field of compassion. What does it mean? It refers to the field of merit that requires compassion and evokes empathy. There are 2 types of this field of merit. One is the field of merit, which is for increasing blessings, and the other is the field of compassion. I'm talking about those pitiful sentient beings I mentioned earlier, including, for example, the beggars we see on the street. Because sometimes many people in China habitually think that these beggars are all deceiving others. Everyone assumes they are dishonest. So as a result, we all just ignore them. But actually, this is a matter of perception. If they completely and truly weren't pitiful at all, they probably wouldn't be standing there in the first place. It is possible that some of them really are trying to intentionally mislead people, but if our hearts are pure, we can still offer our support to those in need with an immense sense of compassion. Furthermore, there are indeed many people who desperately need help in the world today, including some patients and those who are truly unfortunate. Yeah, these are also some of the most fundamental methods for increasing merit and virtue. Personally, compared to building Buddha statues or temples, though I do that as well, but I place more importance on providing school fees for children who cannot afford to attend school. I often provide school fees to some very poor children, and after giving them the fees, I truly believe that money can be highly beneficial. It is extremely meaningful. For example, for a wealthy person, the amount of money needed for a child's tuition is just a small sum to them. But for someone lacking financial resources, it is extraordinarily valuable and precious. However, when many of us fail to maintain this perspective, but when many of us lack this mindset and fail to recognize it, we have already missed many opportunities. Just yesterday, an individual right here in this group shared a thought, mentioning that every year they plan to set aside a portion of their annual business profits to perform various good deeds. This is absolutely essential. The majority of us tend to believe, I'll do good deeds after I make a lot of money. But actually, that's not the case. At any given moment, we can perform good deeds now, according to what is suitable for ourselves. In this way, this is the most fundamental way to increase our merit and virtue. So the fields of compassion and merit are highly important. By relying upon these two fields, we can accumulate a great deal of virtuous merit. At the same time, we can also recite sacred mantras and scriptures ourselves. This is even more important. As a matter of fact, relying on yourself to perform these good deeds is even more crucial and significant.
My second question for you is as follows. Personally, I really have a strong desire to become a financial advisor. Master, could you please provide me with some valuable advice? Or what practices can help me cultivate wisdom in this area? Thank you, Master.
Whether you become a professional consultant or not, what is the specific title that consultants are usually referred to as? If they have the time, they'll ask you. If not, they won't. So, for many professional consultants, some people simply don't ask them anything at all. When I became a consultant at the academy, they didn't ask me anything. So I would often ask them, how did you handle this particular situation? So when other people don't consult with professional consultants about anything, you have to take the initiative to ask and seek out others. This is actually the main responsibility of a consultant. Of course, to develop wisdom, you may practice the Manjushri Dharma, or if possible, make a pilgrimage to Mount Wutai. After I made a pilgrimage to Mount Wutai, I personally felt that I genuinely gained a lot of valuable wisdom and insight. Mount Wutai has a special flower called the Manjushri flower, also known as the golden lotus. Drink this golden lotus tea and then pray to Manjushri Bodhisattva and recite the mantra Om Marapatanati every day. This sacred mantra is indeed exceptionally effective. By personally relying upon this specific method myself before I ever went to Mount Wutai, when I studied Buddhist logic, there was a text called Pramanavartika that I just couldn't understand. At that time, our teacher said, let's all go. Before studying Buddhist logic, we went on a pilgrimage to Mount Wutai. After returning, many of our confusions seemed to be resolved. So, from my experience, I feel that developing wisdom is necessary. To gain wisdom, you also need some skillful means. You have to build connections. You have to make offerings to Manjushri Bodhisattva properly. After all, the great wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva probably won't be subject to any investigations by other inspection authorities or anything like that. Therefore, we should sincerely pray in our hearts.
Respected teacher, hello. I have a specific question I would like to ask. Just now I heard you mention a certain teacher who was very attached to a simple wooden bowl. I was thinking about this, and it seems that each of us has our own unique preferences and personal attachments. This surely includes everyone present here with us today. Some people like to smoke, others like to drink alcohol, some enjoy swimming, and so on. Everyone has different hobbies. When it comes to the habit of smoking, nowadays almost everyone is concerned about our natural environment. The environment we all live in is extremely harsh. So are our personal preferences also considered to be another subtle form of attachment? If they are attachments, then should we give them up? Or is there perhaps an alternative approach that can assist us in resolving these deep-seated preferences or attachments? Thank you.
Everyone has their own preferences, but among preferences there are some that are relatively reasonable and some that are not good. There are two kinds. From the most profound and ultimate perspective, all reasonable and unreasonable preferences in the end, at the fundamental source of the entire Dharma realm of all existence, when observed with the greatest and deepest wisdom, both good and evil qualities are exactly as they are meticulously described in the Diamond Sutra. All appearances are illusory. Ultimately, nothing can be grasped. This is not a legend, nor is it a myth. Indeed, when we observe with wisdom, neither good nor bad can truly be obtained. However, before we reach this ultimate state, we must seek a relatively better form of attachment. This is also quite necessary. When we actively pursue the concepts of good and evil, we should not lean towards evil, but strive towards goodness. This is a very important point that we should all consider. Of course, each of us may have some ingrained habits or persistent tendencies. For example, some people might enjoy drinking quite often, while on the other hand, some people may prefer to smoke regularly. Not too long ago, a famous celebrity shared that filming a movie was an incredibly exhausting and physically demanding process for him, and by the very end, the intense pressure was quite overwhelming. To cope with this, he ended up relaxing by drinking red wine and smoking. But unexpectedly, now he's become deeply addicted. He hasn't been able to quit at all, so he asked me for advice on what to do. I said whether it's smoking or drinking, from the perspective of cause and effect in Buddhism, the faults are significant. But even if we don't talk about Buddhist cause and effect, just in terms of one's own health, because smoking is very harmful to our bodies, including being extremely damaging to the lungs and liver. When you examine some medical knowledge from abroad, it's deeply unsettling. It's almost like people are intentionally destroying their own health, and drinking is the same way. On the surface, many alcohol advertisements look very sophisticated and appealing. And nowadays, it seems like many people can't have a gathering without alcohol. They feel they can't talk without alcohol. They can't even eat properly. Many people with slightly better living conditions have developed this habit. Actually, even if we don't talk about Buddhist cause and effect, and look purely from the perspective of personal health, once alcohol enters the body, it does cause serious harm to the entire system. The toxins in alcohol are indeed more damaging to the human body than many other substances. So, before we reach the highest level of realization, people should, as much as possible, choose things, both spiritual and material, that are beneficial to their physical and mental health, using such nourishment to sustain themselves. Of course, there are times when we really have no choice and are forced into it. A while ago, I posted a message on Weibo. I said that when a person's personal dreams and their daily reality are in conflict, the only real option is to choose reality, because for the time being, you truly have no freedom and no other way out. But if you never forget your original intention and stay true to yourself, there will surely come a day when your dreams finally come true. This is a sincere thought that truly comes from the bottom of my heart. Recently, the number of views has been quite high, and it is now getting close to 10 million. I checked yesterday, and many people have read it. Indeed, in real life, I can truly feel it. Whether it's me or many others, at the beginning, we all want to be good people, to be someone who is good at everything with wonderful dreams. But in real life, there are many things that leave us feeling helpless. Sometimes there's really nothing you can do. Sometimes it's worries that push you. Sometimes your friends push you. Sometimes society does. Sometimes it's the environment that pushes you Sometimes it's your daily job that pushes you. So in our personal lives, especially when your heart is more fragile, it feels like there are so many things you just can't help. There are so many situations where you feel powerless. In these circumstances, you might have no other choice but to go with the flow. But you need to hold on to and remember what dreams you first envisioned for your life. Especially for some of us, if you truly want to be a virtuous and honorable individual, you should always know that you should never allow yourself to become this way. According to Buddhist teachings, there is a way to repent. For example, reciting the Vajrasattva mantra, there are many such effective methods. If you do this, it's still better than being someone who does nothing but evil deeds. So as humans, it's simply not possible for us to be absolutely perfect or flawless. If you could achieve that, you would have already attained Buddhahood. But in the process of being human, we will encounter some exceptionally good opportunities, as well as some very unfortunate experiences. At such times, we truly need to know how to make the right choices, and also how to sincerely practice the act of repent.
Hello, Master. I am originally from Hainan. I am the Secretary General of the QPL Hainan Alumni Association, and I have 2 questions. Because the second question just came to mind. The first question is this. Practicing the 21 Taras prayer and the Green Tara mantra, when it comes to praying for increased wealth and the blessing of the birth of children, is a very special and supreme Dharma practice. Actually, now I would like to ask the Master, in our business operations or personal lives, how should we practice the 21 Taras prayer and the right view and right awareness in the Green Tara mantra so that we can walk the right path and help increase the wealth of our business, or pray for the arrival of children? I ask the Master for guidance. The second question is, I have discussed with many friends in the field of history, and we frequently discover the sensation that during a certain meeting or event, this exact scenario has already manifested itself vividly in my dreams before. For example, right now, before I was about to ask my question, I suddenly realized that it seemed like I had attended this meeting in a dream before and had been to this place. It feels very familiar. I would like to ask the Master for guidance on these 2 questions. Thank you.
Haven't we met in a dream or something? Seems like we even had a meeting in a dream. The first question is about Tara, which is very important. Why do I say this? The 21 Taras were highly revered in the history of India. They were also highly revered in the history of Tibet, including within our rich and diverse contemporary traditions of Tibetan Buddhism, regardless of whether one is a layperson or a monastic. Because in Tibet there is hardly anyone who isn't a Buddhist, except for some of the younger generation nowadays. Many young people and officials today do not believe in Buddhism. You might not know this. Many people say, I went to Tibet and it's so wonderful there. But in my mind, there are some people in Tibet whose faith is very pure and sincere, which is wonderful. But there are also a great many individuals who are even far worse than others. There are some Tibetans who are especially problematic and difficult. Nowadays, some are influenced by modern Western cultural influences, and there are all kinds of complex situations. In this case, I believe the 21 Taras should be given great importance in Tibet. There was once a time when they were promoted in Han regions as well. However, many people may not be very familiar with it. Therefore, regarding the 21 Taras, I have previously given a dedicated lecture on this important topic, and later I personally compiled a book which has now been published, titled UQ, Whatever You Request, It Will Be Granted. If there is a request, the 21 Tara deities bestow divine blessings upon you to varying degrees. The ancient mantra of the 21 Tara is Om Tare Tatare Tare Suha. This practice is actually very simple to perform. This Tara practice is known for being exceptionally swift. The omniscient Mipham Rinpoche once stated during his teaching of the Garland of Jewels, the 8 great bodhisattvas, that among all the noble bodhisattvas, the wisdom of Manjushri is the sharpest and most profound. Furthermore, among all the compassionate Mother Buddhas, the blessings of Noble Tara are the fastest to manifest for practitioners. In other words, no matter what requests we may have, by faithfully relying upon Tara's blessings, we can indeed obtain them with a great deal of speed and efficiency. Therefore, Because of these various factors, I especially hope that many of us here, including aspiring and established entrepreneurs, can sometimes in our professional work or long-term entrepreneurial journeys, you will encounter all kinds of disasters, obstacles, and suffering. At such difficult times, please pray to Tara more often. Personally, ever since I was a young child, I have always relied on her and prayed for her constant protection. From the age of 5 or 6, I have been reciting Tara's prayers continuously up to now. And for the entire rest of my life, I will faithfully continue to pray to her. So, when I previously taught about the sacred 21 Taras, I said, this is probably one of my greatest personal strengths. Because throughout my life, back when I started herding yaks before I even went to school, every day I would go to the mountaintop to recite Tara's prayers. I've always had an incredibly deep faith and devotion in Tara's stories and in the goddess herself. Later, when I was in school, there were many times. At that time, when we were studying, it happened to be a period when religion had not yet been reopened. Many people started talking about us, but I continued to recite quietly at school. After religion was reopened, it goes without saying, and after I became a monk, even more so. So for myself, I have extremely sincere and unwavering faith in Tara and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. As for all of you, whether you have faith or not, you can always rely on Tara. Because recently in various cities across the Han region, there have been many stories of miracles happening through relying on prayers to the 21 Taras. There are quite a lot of miraculous stories like this. Some people might think this is just a myth, that it's impossible. But for some individuals, they really have to acknowledge this reality in their own lives. Therefore, in your own life, whether it is about your material wealth, the future of your children, or anything else, whatever you seek, relying on the power of prayer can bring about significant and positive results. Of course, Buddhist prayers are not necessarily 100% guaranteed or entirely foolproof. If they were, that wouldn't be reasonable either. That would already go against the universal law of cause and effect. Even the very best doctor cannot possibly guarantee that he can cure every single illness 100% of the time. So if a Buddhist says that as long as you pray there will be absolutely no problem, that actually indicates there is still a problem. In this world, any medicine that can successfully cure illnesses, and you can acknowledge its effectiveness in treating diseases, but there are some special illnesses that it cannot cure. In the same way, the blessings of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in Buddhism can absolutely change the aspects of your life for which you truly have the karmic conditions to be transformed. That is entirely possible. But if something is extremely serious or already beyond change, then there is nothing that can be done about it either. So during the process of praying, we also truly need to deeply understand this essential principle. This is a very important point for us to consider. Secondly, you just mentioned the experience of seeing it clearly in a dream. If such a scene has appeared in our dreams before, some causes and conditions are indeed truly inconceivable, beyond the scope of our current understanding. For example, things that will happen tomorrow. At various times they appear to me in my dreams tonight. Or there are some people I've never met in person before, but in my dreams it's as if I've already met them. So, life truly resembles a fleeting dream or an illusion. Many of the foreign films made nowadays, including notable works such as The Matrix and Inception, delve into these concepts. Some of the explorations in these movies actually relate to our lives. In life, it's said that everything is like a dream or an illusion. In Buddhism, there is a text called the Debate Song of Awakening and Dream. When awakening and dreaming are debated with each other, in the end, it's hard to analyze whether we're dreaming or actually doing things now. In these moments, there's certain causes and conditions in our present life may also appear in our dreams. And the causes and conditions in our dreams can also manifest in real life. So perhaps this is a kind of state achieved through spiritual practice. Perhaps it is a profound and intricate manifestation of karmic connections. The vivid, dreamlike scenes that you encounter in your daily life today may have already appeared to you as a cinematic preview within the quiet and mysterious depths of your subconscious dreams. Such rare occurrences actually happen quite often in life. But as for the specific underlying causes and the various complex conditions, it is truly difficult for me to say with any certainty. There are many such profound, mysterious, and wondrous principles at work in our lives. Perhaps only when you delve deeply into studying the nature of things as dreamlike and illusory, containing several deeply profound truths, will you truly understand.
Respected teacher and esteemed masters, because I personally study Pure Land Buddhism and mainly practice reciting the Buddha's name. So the master mentioned that if we can effectively supplement with Vajrayana methods, it can be significantly more comprehensive. Could you provide me with a specific technique that I can use to assist my main practice of the Pure Land school?
I also deeply feel that studying the Pure Land teachings is actually essential for us. We should sincerely cherish and value the Pure Land Dharma door. But in Vajrayana as well, it is indeed necessary to study the Pure Land teachings. Yesterday, I also answered some of these questions during the Q&A. So, if you want to supplement your practice in this way, perhaps you could refer to the Words of My Perfect Teacher. The latter part of Words of My Perfect Teacher discusses Pure Land teachings. Earlier sections cover the rarity of human life, life's impermanence, the sufferings of samsara, as well as refuge and bodhicitta. There is also the matter of how to confess, how to purify, and how to accumulate merit. As a Buddhist, these are the most basic, fundamental teachings you must understand. Therefore, it is best to study the Words of My Perfect Teacher seriously. The Buddhist doctrines are explained here in an exceptionally thorough, complete, and comprehensive way. After this, I think that if you also recite specific sacred mantras at the same time, you know that our Buddhist Academy holds the Amitabha Pure Land Puja every year, and Tibetan Buddhism also greatly aspires to the Pure Land and places great importance on it. Tibetan Buddhism also encourages making aspirations to be reborn in the Pure Land of ultimate bliss. It also emphasizes that, given the opportunity, you should study widely and gain extensive knowledge. Of course, focusing deeply on one path is also very vital. However, if you have a lot of discursive thoughts and frequently develop wrong views about matters, then relying on one scripture may not necessarily resolve everything. Sentient beings have many discursive thoughts, so for some sentient beings it may also be necessary to have support from other sutras and treatises is also very important. In such circumstances, the first treatise, the Words of My Perfect Teacher, is very important. At the same time, if you recite certain mantras every year at our institute, everyone recites the mantra for rebirth in the Pure Land. This is the Sacred Heart mantra from the profound Amitabha practice. Om Amidewa Ayu Siddhi Hung So. This powerful mantra is one that many people should already know, and it is also widely available online for everyone to find. Om Amidewa Ayu Siddhi Hung So. Every year, we recite this 300,000 times. This is an extremely precious teaching for attaining rebirth in the Pure Land of ultimate bliss. We also recite the Vajrasattva Heart mantra 400,000 times, because to be reborn in the Pure Land, we need to confess our misdeeds. We have done many bad things in this world. If you carry your karma with you, it can be difficult to attain rebirth. Although there are different views on this, such as rebirth with or without karma, it's best to use these kinds of supports. They are quite important.
My second question, because I really sincerely yearn for the chance to experience a short-term ordination one day. But there are a wide variety of different perspectives saying that women cannot shave their heads during short-term ordination because you only get one chance. If you shave your head, then if you want to formally ordain in the future, you won't have another opportunity. So I wonder if the master could give me some guidance on this matter.
Actually, I'm also looking into this matter now. In the scriptures and treatises regarding the issue of ordination, it is said that there is a basis for this in Theravada Buddhism and the Pali texts. However, in Tibetan Buddhism, this particular practice does not exist. In the past, there have been such cases. So I have not found a scriptural basis for it, but in reality, judging from the experiences of many people who have taken short-term ordination, it is extremely precious and truly worthy of praise. In the past, this has happened both domestically and abroad. During this process, if men are allowed to take short-term ordination, then women should also be able to, logically speaking. However, some of the Buddha's precepts are not based on reasoning alone. So, those individuals who choose to undertake the practice of short-term ordination may need to discuss this further. Otherwise, in our academy, generally speaking, we do not organize short-term ordination activities. If there were such activities, one experiences the life of an ordained person. From a Buddhist perspective, this plants the seed for ordination. Because if you become ordained for your whole life, perhaps like in Thailand, for example, before the age of 20, men are required to be ordained at least once. There are such customs. But for many of us, it may not be possible to become ordained in this lifetime. If you have a strong aspiration toward Buddhism, then even after being ordained for 7 full days, those 7 days are like a brief lifetime. So treating those 7 days as a whole lifetime, such an ordination, it is indeed very good to plant the virtuous seed of ordination. But as for the specifics, honestly, I'm not very familiar with this myself. I'm still researching it. However, the results of my research are not yet entirely clear. Now let us move on to the third question. Generally, women can also utilize the assistance of bhikshu monks for ordination. For bhikshus, 10 are required. For bhikshunis, a total of 20 are needed. This is specifically mentioned in the Vinaya Sutra. This is somewhat different in various versions of the Dharmaguptaka Vinaya. In the Sarvastivada Vinaya, it is allowed